sustainability strengthens our social fabric. It promotes, our equity and our inclusivity, and it's the sustainable holistic growth we need to retain and improve our collective societal health and well-being.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so there's so much there. We have the power to make every small initiative count, and together these actions can lead to significant positive changes for our world.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sharing is Caring. I'm your host, Blue, and today we have a truly enlightening conversation lined up for you. Joining us is the remarkable Paula Rose Castronova, a visionary in sustainability and a global citizen with an impressive journey from fashion design to sustainable leadership. Today, she'll share her insights on how small, sustainable actions can lead to significant global impacts. In this episode, Paola dives deep into the interconnectedness of social, environmental, and economic sustainability. She discusses her global experiences and how different cultures approach sustainability, offering practical strategies that everyone can implement to contribute to a healthier planet. From her roots in Southern California to her extensive work across continents, Paola brings a wealth of knowledge and a unique perspective that is not only inspiring, but also actionable. If you care about the future of our planet and believe in the power of individual actions to drive collective change, this episode is a must listen. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you find our content valuable. Thank you to all our faithful listeners for your continued support. Now let's dive into this fascinating conversation with Paula Rose Castronova.
How are you?
Fine. How are you today, Jonathan? Thank you so much for having me on Sharing is Caring. Where did you come up with your wonderful title?
Great question. It was just a feeling that we do share a lot as societies, but I feel we should do more. And I think it's a great thing that it just says it all. Sharing is actually caring about people, humanity, and whatever. So yeah, I think it's a great reminder. Everybody knows it, and I feel it's sort of our vision, so it was just to remind that our vision was that.
Right, fantastic. And that brings us to sustainability, which is why I'm here too. So that's ties in very nicely. It's very, very important and pertinent to what's happening in the world today for sure.
Indeed, you share your knowledge about sustainability, and many people are not really aware. I think we do have a sense that we need more sustainability, but in terms of actionable action, it's always very difficult. I know I can do more. I pretend to be a sustainable guy, etc. But I know I can do more, and the only way, not the only way, but I think I need to be more educated about what is sustainability, maybe new angles of it, and of course actionable actions that I could do, that I can promote. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's what exactly we'll try to talk a little bit about that, now. And it's an ever-changing world, and it's always, tipping points, or everything's always evolving and changing. So, it's good to update yourself with different, innovations and technologies and what's happening in the world, and where the actual tipping points are and how to prevent them. There's so many interwoven, how do I say it, holistic sustainability, where we have to, integrate everything. So yeah, super important.
Indeed. That's great. We synchronized even before introducing yourself. So if you mind telling our listeners who you are and where is it that you call from?
Yes. Okay. Well, I am Paula Rose Castronova. I was born in Southern California, Los Angeles, and raised in Sydney, Australia, where I live now. I have lived and worked in different parts of the world, from Tokyo through the US to London. I started in creative fashion design, art direction, moved on into costume design and set dressing, things like that, and then had my own company with art direction commercially for media enterprises, and then moved into food and wine, and then moved on to sustainability in food cultures. So I've recently attained high-level education in sustainable leadership through Cambridge and Harvard. I'm currently studying for business and society at Harvard to bring the financial side to sustainability, which is a little lagging, and civil society also to help them understand the human rights aspect of sustainability. And then before that, I did a master's in gastronomical tourism. So that was fun. And that really provided me with study through cultures, so you say rural cultures, and keeping the integrity of and the beauty of the communities, but yet helping them to be financially viable. So, that balance where, because tourism can be quite unsustainable, and how do we sort of promote that, and how do we fix the actual problems and find solutions within that? So, and it brings an inclusion and empathy for our natural world.
That's amazing. I think that's a beautiful curriculum that you have, you have a rare skill set of food development, sustainability, and finance as well. So that's really, I guess, the tool set to change the world.
Exactly. And then personally, I've had to navigate really complex challenges. And then you learn, especially, COVID and the hospitality industry basically falling down, as you would have experienced. And, and then having to change and pivot. And I think that brings a lot of creativity, which is now, positioning me with a catalyst for the positive change and holistic, which holistic means preventative rather than remedial solutions. So, how we can, prevent, soil degradation, or, and food as medicine. So, anything in sustainability, whether it's food or fashion or, energy, it's how to, make it circular. And I hear circularity a lot, from different sort of sectors. It's very important to close the loop around. And our health, food and medicine is so important, with our health and the soil health and having local farmers. So, they're all tied into everything. It seems so simple, but yet it's so hard to achieve.
Yes, definitely agree. I think the circle is a really good metaphor, because it's all a circle. Whether it all comes from nature, and nature needs to thrive, etc. So it's very important to understand that every action is kind of connected to sustainability, and every industry, etc. So it should be everywhere, basically. It's not only for certain people, or it's just for us if we want to continue to live on Earth.
That's it.
Every action should promote sustainability, etc.
Exactly. And that's why I came up with the sustainable, growth director, because I recognize the global interconnectedness of all our social, environmental, and economic issues, which I think we'll talk about. And I hope to bring this fresh, positive perspective. So there are solutions. It's not negative, to our sustainability challenges, which are extensive, with all the microplastics in the ocean and science, sort of climate change, catastrophes, weather events, we can see it all happening, biodiversity loss, but it really does, unite us to create solutions.
Indeed. That brings us to a question I'd like to ask is, what is your vision on sustainability and development? What's your philosophy, so to say? You know so many angles of the issue, so how would you summarize it in your own vision, Paola's vision for that?
Yes. I try to be a thought leader. So, I can deep dive into different aspects of it, and then work out solutions for different sectors, but with research. But overall, I think it revolves around the innovative and inclusive approaches that tackle our complex sustainability challenges, no matter what they are. In food and associated tourism, I really respect Renee Redzepi's Mad Academy. I don't know if you've heard of it. Renee Redzepi from Copenhagen, Noma, he
Yeah.
started, an education program called Mad Academy. I think everyone in hospitality or, farming should go. You can either take business and leadership or environment and sustainability, and they also custom programs for different parts of the community.
Have you worked on specific project that maybe you can explain to us? Yeah.
As far as more in an educational way, I should imagine. But there's a lot to do with, the environmental immersions. There's Growing Greener in Italy. So it's really about, sort of integrating sustainability into all aspects of life and industry. That's how we really promote eco-friendly practices. So what I try to do is work with different people and find ways to promote whatever they're doing. So
Okay.
that, to find economic resilience.
Your grandfather was from Sicily, a farmer from Sicily. We had some offline conversations, so I know it. How did it influence the Paula that you are? I know you're quite a big advocate on soil health, if I'm not mistaken. How did that come? How was it transmission or? Yeah, can you?
Yes, no, exactly. No, as a young child, I would watch him grow in a backyard. He and my grandmother came to live with us. Had a house next door actually. And he turned the backyard into a cornucopia of food and wine. He made his own wine, the grape growing, prickly pears, which are very popular. So, his own community, what he liked to have. We had lemons and he had orchards and plums, and we also had zucchinis and tomatoes, whatever he could grow, anything really. So it was pretty impressive, and that taught me a lot of soil health and organic gardening, because then my grandmother would make everything from scratch and with everything that he would grow.
Okay, that's really cool. That's nice. We talked about the interconnection between social, environmental, and economic issue. You come from a very diverse background. You've done so many things. How do you see the interconnection playing out in your work?
Right. Okay. So the interconnection, I think I'd like to just, so people sort of understand, I'd like to describe them each separately and then put them together, with an integrated sort of effort. So social sustainability is focused on improving the well-being of the present and future generations with equality, diversity, and access to essential services. So if we ensure social equity, which is social justice and fairness, then this will lay a strong foundation for sustainable development projects and programs across all sectors. And then we can move into environmental sustainability, and that means that we need to protect natural resources and ecosystems. If we preserve these, then we will preserve biodiversity, reduce our pollution, and promote practices that minimize the degradation, as we were talking about degradation in soils, for instance. This will safeguard, our planet's ability to support itself, and our lives in turn. And then that brings the economic sustainability. So this seeks to establish a resilient economy so that we can foster prosperity while respecting environmental limits. Nature capital is a very important part of the GDP that must be incorporated so that is part of any sort of growth. And then we can focus that on our responsible resource management, which provides fair growth. Now, if we can integrate these three pillars, we can develop, a balanced way across sector policies. I think that all three of these dimensions is sort of, it sounds complex, but it's really not. It's just that we can bring these three pillars together, and then that requires a holistic approach, and it's intrinsic for creating our sustainable future. I can give you an example, which I think would probably then, maybe people would understand better. Let's say you have green jobs. These green jobs then can drive economic growth, and that will reduce environmental impacts and enhance social equity. And then also education is key to everything here, because it empowers, our communities globally to make informed choices for our sustainable progress. So it really means that we just have to integrate, the three of these very important sustainable efforts, for our planet to survive.
Yeah, definitely agree. I know it sounds like preaching, but I think the general public is realizing more and more that we cannot escape that. I think I saw a video recently of a beekeeper saying that if we do not have bees, the humanity would collapse in 4 years. I think, when you say we should integrate biodiversity in economic performance measure, we are getting there. I know people like you have been preaching that for decades. I know that several years ago I was hearing that and it was not really resonating with me or ringing any bell. And now, it's because of what we do with farmlands and because of I got more educated thanks to people like you. It sounds more and more obvious. So
yes, and chemicals, and it has to do with, and I know we can talk about, smaller but local communities, and I know, we can go into like different things people can do, but it's more, as you're saying, like, it's hard, I guess, like, I know what you mean about preaching, but it's almost like, I know alarm bells are going off in my head, and we need to bring a very much we can do this attitude. Scientists are telling us that, the planet won't survive. We use all the resources for the planet, the nature capital, by July each year. And it's just each year it's getting to be a month before that, so it was September and now it's July. So we don't have those resources. And so there are the tipping points, especially with food. Like, I mean, agriculture after energy, I think agriculture, I work with the UN. That's another hat that I have. I'm a sustainability director for the United Nations Association of Australia and New South Wales. And, I think that agriculture, will be the next thing, because the methane and the CO2s that go into the air, we contribute, I don't know the exact percentages, but is it 30 or 40%, of the global, sort of greenhouse gases that are through agriculture. So, how do we address that? How do we then find solutions to make our people healthier, so then we don't have to have, that's preventative, that's holistic medicine is preventative, so that we don't have to have the medicines and the different sort of things that, sort of, we will be healthier as people. So and the soil health is really important too. So it's all, interconnected.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks so much for making it again clear that it's all interconnected, and we cannot escape. We cannot escape our duties.
No, exactly. And it's also up to us as people, as, just as everyone on the planet, not to sort of say, oh, well, these are the systems that are in place, so we have to use them. We don't. We made those systems. We can dismantle them and make new systems. It's up to us to decide if we decide to buy organic vegetables, even though instead of packaged things or pre-made things, or things that have chemicals in them. Think of it. We're organic. Our bodies are organic, so why would we want inorganic things put in it? It doesn't make sense to me anyway, and I'm not preaching, if that's my own personal opinion. But, then it, a lot of people would see that, and now it is becoming more mainstream, but it's just because the systems are in place. So it's how to change, and not, sort of be an activist, although I appreciate activism, especially in this space with climate change, but it's more taking what it is and being able to, change that into something more sustainable. What scientists are saying is that we don't have the time. They think that these tipping points, the Arctic melt, the what's happening so quickly, they don't know, that it's off the records of anything that's foreseen. So they don't know how long we have. I would like to create a bigger sense of urgency. And that's what I'm hearing, with everyone within my sector, is that the urgency needs to be, civil society needs to say yes, like people like you and me, need to say yes, we need to do this now, like we can't wait any, it's no more talking, while everything is burning or, flooding. And it's maybe not in our lifetime, but for instance, in Australia, by 2030, all our landfills are going to be full. What do you do with all that waste when, there's not a lot of infrastructure? I think we'll talk about, global travels, but there's not a lot of infrastructure here for recyclable mechanisms that are circular. So, and each country has its own challenges, but we learn from other countries, say in green technology, for instance. I know people that are, looking to France and the Netherlands, and they look to us for technology so we can share information so that we can quickly, be able to adapt and change things that are within, what our countries need, especially when it comes to the different, soils and things like that through agriculture.
You said so many things that I 100% fully agree with. So thank you. I think we need sharing. That's very obvious. So yeah, thanks to you for coming to our podcast and spread the good vibes awareness. That's what we need. Personally, I think those kind of messages they take time, and you need to hear them many times so that they become obvious and so. Yeah, regarding that, of course, you talk about organic. I was about to say, that also, I didn't want to interrupt, but clearly organic is, I wouldn't say it's the only way to go, but we need to get more serious about it. And as you said, systems are man-made, so they need to change. I strongly believe in that. So yeah, we need to change the rules, so to say.
That's it. Exactly. And for the nature and for, for the bees and for the positive, the different things that you can do. I know from the food and wine industry, which I did most of my research on with my master's in gastronomic tourism, and they use a lot of natural products anyway, here in Australia, at least. Napa has developed it too, and I'm sure in Europe as well, but, using goats instead of pesticides to bring down the weeds, just, taking, different, sort of, I think it's just natural products, to fight whatever you need to fight, or water use. There's those, water, desertification or, water scarcity, so how do we drip feed when it's coming? How to use flooding plains, and that, I think that goes across, all of the different, types of agriculture, and just really, cropping different, changing your crops around, and sort of, as I said, I would have to deep dive and research, but I'm sure you do that. I find it fascinating. I find biodynamic fascinating. I love it. This is so interesting way to put the nutrients back into the soil.
Indeed. That brings us, but you partly already answered that question, to strategies. What do you think, in terms of strategies, what do you think we need to implement, we need to promote, we need to make people more aware of?
Yes, well, I mean, there's a few things, but, I guess we're talking about, eco-friendly practices, which is recycling, energy efficiency, renewable energy, transportation. Those are the ones that I think globally are being implemented and pushed, and green spaces. So, but that's not like, yes, in urban, but in cities, the green spaces and biodiversity, there has to be more parks, more community gardens, protect our local habitats and, promote the native planting, of native species, and that supports the local biodiversity. So that supports, the bees that you have in each country, or the bird life, and, the insects, which are so important. Everybody, well, I know, at least in America, but, insects are bad. Well, they're actually really good. I sort of talk to my insects. I say, well, you go outside, and I catch them and take them outside and start, you don't kill them with pesticides. You're probably just doing more harm to your own body. But, so those are just little things you can do. And then, well, food systems, promoting sustainable food systems. And each one of us can do this. Each one of us can have community gardens. Then your food is free. And with the cost of it these days, we have our own composting, and I have my own little garden, and support local markets. I go to the market every weekend, and then encourage organic farming, because that in turn improves human health. And that helps with our own food security when things like COVID or, the global supply chains aren't there. If you have your own food security, and then you will also, build your environmental health. So, very important. Building resilient infrastructure, which means, like the operational sustainability of everything. So that means, your buildings, and that's sustainability is really important with across all sectors, whether it be museums or your farm sheds, it's building those resilient buildings and, sustainable urban planning for, the growth, because the population will grow. So how do we feed and how do we sustainably, provide for the amount of people on the planet? So, green building standards, and that's, that deals with government and government supporting, sort of business, which in turn, supports, civil society. And that brings us to local economy. So making it local rather than global. So like helping your own local businesses, such as yourselves, like what you're doing is so important, and that encourages social enterprises. And then that also promotes the fair trade practices with respect to human rights, so that, people do not, people themselves are not, abused for the things, that they do, and they get paid, a decent wage to live, a good life, whatever that means to them. And then lastly, which is what I'm trying to get more involved with, because policy and advocacy are really important, so that the finance is there for people like you to do what you need to do. And local sustainable policy, so that they're in place, so there are benchmarks that aren't too, like some of the ESG reporting, there's been a lot of problems within that because it's a bit too hard on the businesses to try to be able to, sort of meet all their ESG targets. But yet, well, as far as the ESG targets internally are easy to monitor, but it's the external targets where they say that, let's say, let's say you were a farmer and then you buy something that is tainted with, pesticides from another contractor. You then are responsible for that ESG target not being met. And that's your outside supplier. So you have to, how do you know where those supplies come from? Sometimes you just don't know. I mean, people, can say they do. There's a lot of greenwashing, as we know. So, that's where the problems lie within the ESG reporting. But they're all new, and we're gonna, nothing's perfect, and there'll be places where we need to improve on all levels in all different sections, from businesses to governments, but at least we're trying, and then you find out where it can work and where it can't work and who's responsible for it. So that's, but governments can provide finance, and they can, especially in small communities and African communities, governments or organizations such as the United Nations, which is why I'm a sustainability director there, because then I can support the places that need supporting. That's what happens. Say I'm mentoring a young leader in Afghanistan for it's called She Mentors through the Aga Khan Foundation, and she is in food technology. I'm helping her understand where she can lead in her community for desertification they're worried about, and water scarcity. So how can she do that to help their farmers, which is really rewarding for me. But it's, something that needs to happen so we can mobilize, community members, and then form those partnerships for systemic change. So, you can go to anyone around in your community and you're all on the same page and you all are making the way forward. So it makes things, more financially viable for your businesses, and it makes your community get together and do things. So, it helps with mental health. So it all ties in. So, and if each local community did that in one country, then you would be changing, the systemic, systems that are in place.
Indeed, it sounds super easy, but yeah, I think that's
Well, no, but yeah, that's like the overview. I guess it's the actual implementation that's the hard part, right, Jonathan? What do you think?
no, I think it's formidable. I think yeah, if you can uh, impact at the local level. You mentioned before that you're in favor of more local consumption. I think it's a no-brainer. The system has been so that yeah, everybody's importing, trying to get the cheapest, etc. And in terms of food, in my opinion, it's not working. So yeah, I think we need to go local. Values are important. If you consume local, you sort of have the same value in the that you believe in the food that you get. And yeah, it's more sustainable and it brings some kind of connection with local community and earth as well. I think yeah, we are so disconnected, and in my opinion, it's because we just lost track of well the cycle of life, and yeah, just
Exactly.
yeah, we
I
need.
mean, I find that the two, and I was on a roundtable discussion for a big conference here in the farming community with agriculture, and I did know about it, but I didn't realize the reality of like the no-till policy. For our large farmers here, they can't sell certain sort of, let's say it's apples. Let's say they sell 5,000 tons of apples, let's say each year, but they're not allowed, they're only allowed to sell them to the supermarkets, and then they have to sort of till them, put them back into the ground, and they can't go out, and they would like to, the farmers would like to go out and sell them at their local communities, the ones that have a little blemish or imperfect ones and things like that, but they're not allowed to, so that they can't make any added income to help them, and they don't, they're not wealthy people anyway. So there's all those, what they can use on them, what they can spray on them, and they tell them everything that they have to do. So, you can see that the other sort of markets that are selling things are becoming more popular because of the different policies that they put in place. It's just, each action we take, no matter how large or small, makes a butterfly effect. So that inspires others. But them seeing what you're doing, I'm sure you've felt this with what you're doing. I feel it all the time. It's almost like nature's conspiring with me to help her. And together we can build a fairer, healthier, and more resilient world, And it's not just for us, but it's for, our future generations. What are they going to be, how are they going to live? How are they going to survive, if we've, sort of, I don't know, killed everything off, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely agree. We need to be more focused on the next generation. I think well, now we sort of all understand the world thanks to internet, socials, etc. We sort of all see the impacts of our actions and sort of understand them. So yeah, it's just about pushing for sustainability to be the new norm, and that's really thanks to people like you that it will happen. I don't see any other way. We cannot force it. Legally, it's complicated.
Yeah.
But we all have some common sense, like you mentioned those farmers who were frustrated by regulations, etc. We all have common sense, so yeah, I think we have a choice. We have choices, and we can choose to go the sustainable route, and yeah, it just takes awareness and people spreading good messages like you. So.
Yeah, exactly. And with the regulation, I mean, it's holding them accountable. So also I'm learning, speaking truth to power, so that they can, understand, like one supermarket, I won't make any names, but I know they have a whole sustainability wing now and have developed a whole product range, I guess similar to, the Whole Foods product range, that's all organic, and that only comes through people wanting that and it selling off the shelf. So that's where we come in as individuals individuals. It's like what we take. I'm using farming as an example because I guess you know a lot about. I know about the product side of it as well. Knowing a little bit about food technology and things like that within the food supermarket chains. And if you push for that, if you want that, then fast food's not bad. It's just what is in that fast food that's not good. And a lot of it goes back to plastics, which are so bad for the environment, that get into all our food systems that are now in our human bodies. So, if we change that, each and every one of us can do that. It's, might cost a little bit more, but we can do it. But the ranges here, for instance, they're just the same price as anything else. So, you look and buy it, and going to your local markets, they're a perfect example of basically, voting with your choices.
Indeed. Definitely agree. You have experience across the world, so to say. Yeah.
I know that's, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's good. How do you see different cultures approach questions of sustainability?
No, that's a great question too. It's kind of hard to qualify because I've done, lived in places not necessarily with my sustainability hat on, but looking back, I can bring that to it because the influences I've come through career, personal, emotional, sometimes I even take like diving, physical, or hikes and things like that. But I would say that my research and travel across different continents, has really shown me a unique perspective on cultural approaches to sustainability. I can look back as, an observer and say that, the people and cultures that I have seen, really looking at them through art, food, and dress for the most part, we get a sense of their philosophies and way of life, and which is so different, but yet, very, very the same as all of us are. And that's why sustainability can be, with the Sustainable Development Goals especially, we can see a whole approach, but yet we can keep our culture, which is important. I mean, I love African food. I love African dress, and then you go to somewhere, like Thailand, and you see their, the way they are in their dress and their food is completely different. Yet we all have communities. We all care about our families. We all, have to eat, sort of. So there's so many, we're humans, that we have so many things that are similar. The good thing about the different countries, and I've sort of, thought about, what I could possibly say to bring that, to the sustainability conversation. So the Nordic countries, sustainability really is a way of life. They are at the forefront of examples of what we can do as a global community, to change, things through they have a strong commitment with renewable energy, and they have extensive recycling programs because waste is a huge problem globally. Especially as our human population grows over the next decades. And the cities, emphasize their green spaces, they have cycling paths, and they, promote, very much an eco-friendly living, and everyone wants to live that way. In Japan, where I have lived, they have since ancient, this is an ancient philosophy. It's called, I think it's how you pronounce it is motaini. And that emphasizes resource conservation. That's practices like forest bathing, which you've heard of, which is amazing, and urban farming. And then they believe that they need to show their respect for nature, and they do that consistently and have done, for centuries. African nations. I have done a few case studies at Harvard recently with the different community-based sustainability, and they address their local challenges through their indigenous knowledge, especially for water conservation, and the strong wildlife conservation efforts, that the African nations have, which is commendable. And then Latin America, countries like Costa Rica, they're famous for their ecotourism, and they balance their conservation with their economic benefits. And they're rich in biodiversity, and they do prioritize, the habitat, preservation. And I guess the EU, where you are, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, but I've seen that they do care about their circular economies and sustainable agriculture. And places like the Netherlands, where my cousin lives. She finds, and she told me that they are leading in global renewable energy and waste management. So in Australia, right now, we do have a long way to go with waste management, and even electric vehicle infrastructure is not apparent anywhere. But on the other hand, our government is investing in renewable energies quite substantially and quickly, and the people are demanding, a sustainable future, because we've had such catastrophic climate change, weather conditions, massive bushfires, and biodiversity loss. So, the people are demanding that we address anything to do with climate change or biodiversity loss.
Nice. Okay. So you've mentioned so many good examples and the good students, some of the best students in the world. So yeah, it's refreshing to hear. And yeah, once again, when you say those stories, it makes you think it is possible. You asked me about how is it here?
Yeah.
For energy, I think it's not that bad. The energy mix is mainly coming from hydroelectric, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not bad. It's not fully 100% renewable, clearly not. I don't think there is a policy for that. We definitely, there is not the same drive as the Nordic countries, definitely not. So we're kind of not bad at some things, but we can always do better. Yeah, energy-wise, I think is good, but we can do better in so many things. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Nordic countries
Exactly.
are really leading the way. I think even if you don't look at the number, lifestyle-wise, yeah, they are there really. They understand that every of their actions is impacting. So recycling is big. Everybody knows that. Cycling is big also. So yeah, it's small actions that have major impact, and that I definitely commend. It's amazing to see, and yeah, it's a great inspiration for many developed countries. I know for developing countries it's difficult. It's not the same equation, but it is. But as for developed countries, I think they're really leading the way, and it's really commendable what they do.
Yes, I mean, well, we have to. I mean, we have to be in developed countries, because we're causing most of the emissions. It's hard because one country, for instance, with I don't want to go into politics here, but the politics changing, in the U.S., then it unbalances the system. The Chinese are doing great things, that in different bigger countries that are minting more, they sometimes are in, don't think it's as important because their main, sources of income come from oil and gas. I mean, even here, even though we're doing a lot of things, we're still selling a lot of coal and gas, to the Asian, countries above us. So, even though there are, 5 steps forward and then, 6 steps back, and it's keeping it on track to actually, we just have to get the emissions out of the atmosphere, otherwise no one's going to be here. So, I mean, and that is the crux of the problem. So however that happens, and however me as one person can help that, and I'm hoping us as collectively can help that in whatever we do, then that will make a change. And I have seen the example of the ozone, the hole in the ozone layer back in the 70s, was it that, and everybody stopped the CFCs and it did close. So nature is resilient. We saw that during COVID, which, I mean, I found the best thing about COVID. Well, the only thing that was great about COVID was that there were blue skies in like Beijing and New Delhi, and there were, animals roaming the streets of towns, and everything was cleaner, and that side of then having, but the other things weren't so good, but that side of having us realize that what we're doing to the planet may not be so healthy for it and for us.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Nice. Great point. So we come to the next conversation, the next question, which is one of my favorite, of course. What do you like to eat?
Yes, well, there you go. I mean, coming from, someone who like has traveled for food and, I wanted to be like a food writer. I became a food and wine writer, mostly about wine, but I love traveling. I love experiencing other cultures through food. So I love all kinds of foods. That's a really hard question for me to answer, but I think you like this. I only eat organic food. So my favorite food is organic. However that's made, as long as it's not too bland, but I mean, organic potato, I will just, dive into. So, it's fresh is my favorite food and organic. So however that is presented to me in whatever culture, I love it.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, nice. Easy. And okay. And any advice that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would. I'm writing a book. It's like academia meets mass media, but it's called How Not to Kill the Planet. And it's why small actions matter. So, and it's like what we've been talking about. And a lot of people I hear, they're like, we don't want to hear the word climate change anymore. Just tell us what we need to do. Or they say, well, we don't believe that our actions are going to help at all to these insurmountable problems. So I'm just not going to do anything, and sort of, they can't do, I don't think the language, like the scientific language or the business language, doesn't come and talk to everyone that's doing just normal things and going about their everyday life. But it is true. Each of our small actions have this knock-on effect. So it also shows that when we work together, we can build a fairer, healthier, and more resilient world where sustainability is at the heart of everything we do. And then it gives our children a positive, inspiring message. When we now adopt eco-friendly practices, we're not only helping to preserve our natural ecosystems, but we're also improving the quality of life for those around us. And I think that the bottom line of what I'd like to bring across is that sustainable actions create healthier, more livable communities. It reduces our pollution, it conserves our resources, and it promotes the biodiversity. All of this is, again, preventative rather than remedial, and these actions foster a culture of environmental responsibility and stewardship. So by our conscious choices, we can set an example for future generations, and we can instill those values of respect for nature and care for the planet and ourselves. And if we do this collectively, this will shift. It will make a massive shift towards sustainability, and then our governments will listen, and businesses will listen, and this encourages, innovation across, sectors for, a greener world in the future. And a broader sense might be that sustainability strengthens our social fabric. It promotes, our equity and our inclusivity, and it's the sustainable, holistic growth we need to retain and improve our collective societal health and well-being. Yeah, so there's so much there. We have the power to make every small initiative count, and together these actions can lead to significant positive changes for our world. Look how far we've come. Look how far we've come just since COVID.
Indeed. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
When is the book coming out?
Well, I'm supposed to be February, but I think I'm going to have to push it back to March now. But I'd love to. It's been so great to be here. I hope we haven't talked too long, but I'd love to come back on once I sort of launch it, and maybe we can talk about that.
That was my question.
Good. I'm glad we're so synergy. Yeah.
I see it. Nice. So thank you so much, Paula Rose Castronova, for joining the show. It was a pleasure. Where can people find about what you do?
Where can they find what I do? I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you'll have that in the show notes.
I will. You read, yeah, my bad. Nice. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, calling all the way from Australia. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and looking forward for the next one.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute stunning pleasure. I love talking with you. We could probably talk for days about all the different things that positively ideas, and that's what all this is about. So sustainability is a really important way forward, and we're all working it out. So just do it. You'll make mistakes, you'll fail, but that's all part of growth, isn't it?
Indeed, definitely agree. And yeah, sharing is caring.
Definitely. Sharing is caring.
Thank you, Paula.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sharing is Caring. It's Blue here, wrapping up a truly enlightening conversation with our distinguished guest, Paula Rose Castronova. Today, we delved into the world of sustainability, exploring how individual actions can significantly impact our planet's health and future. Paula shared her incredible journey and the lessons she's learned from various cultures around the world. We discussed practical strategies for integrating sustainability into our daily lives, emphasizing the importance of local actions and community engagement. Her insights remind us that every small step towards sustainability contributes to a larger, global movement towards a healthier and more equitable world. If you've enjoyed this episode and are passionate about making a difference, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you and appreciate your support in spreading the message of sustainability. Remember, each one of us has the power to make a change. Let's continue to share, care, and inspire each other towards a sustainable future. Until next time, keep caring and keep sharing.